top of the hour. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off on this Friday, July 14th on SolidWorks Live Design. Really excited. We got an awesome guest, someone who has a ton of experience training, teaching, learning the ins and outs, supporting SolidWorks. So Amanda, why don't you go ahead and give a brief introduction on kind of your background and maybe what we're going to hit on today.
Sure. So thanks, Mike. So first off, if I could just say, because you just said July 14th, it's my sister's birthday. So just happy birthday, Ashley. I love you.
Hey, happy birthday.
All right. So my name is Amanda Osbun. I'm a senior instructor at Go Engineer. My experience, I've got about 3 years in tech support. I started out in 2015. I really wanted to go into training. That's really my passion. So I've been 6 years now in training. Over 6,000 students. It's actually a conservative number, but I've definitely had about over 6,000 students. And in just a little fun fact, almost every state of the union. And so what was, sorry, my second screen just went out a second. All right,
Oh,
here
no
we go.
worries.
We're coming
But you
back.
said almost
So
every state. Do you know what states you haven't trained someone in?
yes, that's what I was going to say. Alaska. If anyone
Okay.
knows anybody in Alaska that needs some SolidWorks training online, or if it's in person, just make sure it's maybe in summertime. But if I have Alaska, I should have all 50 states.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah, so
awesome.
that should be great. That should be fun. Yeah, so if anyone knows of anybody, that'd be fantastic. Send them my way.
So you've been training. What do you train? I mean, everywhere, essentials. Is there a particular class that you focus on, or is it a little bit of the whole gamut?
Sure. So I do, yeah, I do a wide range. It's lots of essentials, but I also do the advanced parts, assembly modeling, CAM. I got into CAM basically right when it came out in 2018 for SolidWorks CAM. So the way that kind of came about was I was one of the only ones at the company at that point, because we were a small family-owned company at that point. I was the only one of the only ones that had a machining background. So as I did some of that in college,
Oh,
so
cool.
we had some CAM routing, all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, I'm all over the gamut there.
So you've got a wide breadth and depth through all the products. That's great for the audience to know. So as we're going through and Amanda's showing tips and tricks in this episode today, make sure you guys are asking questions or comments. If you see something you like or you can add to it, share your knowledge as well. We got a lot of people tuning in, and we can just have a fun tech days. Todd, exactly. So yeah, use that chat and let us know if questions, comments. So Amanda, is your other screen up and going yet?
Yeah,
Perfect.
so I have, yep, got my little PowerPoint presentation going here. I got the little state of Pennsylvania there. So anybody else in Pennsylvania? Got anybody else going there? I'm actually on the eastern side of PA. So, and I got, so you see, I just wanted to put that little Pennsylvania state up there because I really do love living here in Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful state. I love doing woodworking, hiking, cooking, baking, robotics, anything that gets me outside. Uh, anytime I get to get on a tractor, Mike, it's
I
a
saw
good
that.
day.
So
Always
are you a
fun.
John Deere fan, or are you a Case? Or doesn't matter?
You know what? It doesn't matter. It's just, hey, I'm gonna get on this. You want to take down a tree? Yeah, I'll help you take down that
That's
tree
awesome.
or whatever it is. Yeah, so it'll be anything outside. That's all good with me. And sorry, go ahead, Mike. I just was going to introduce the SolidWorks tips
Yeah,
and
go for it.
tricks. So I just wanted to give some SolidWorks tips and tricks here. That's what this presentation's meant to be about. Just coming more from the training side of things, just things that I see a lot from folks who are just starting out, especially. But even if you're not just starting out, my goals here are for everyone to take at least one thing away from this presentation, right? I mean, I've been going to user groups. Mike, I'm sure you go to user groups as well. They're so fun. You learn so much. Even if it's just that one little nugget that you take away, it's just a fantastic way to get to learn new things. And so in my presentation here, my goal is, I hope everyone takes at least one new thing away. Even if you're a little bit more of an advanced user, I think there's still some things here that you can learn and take away into your future SolidWorks adventures. And then, of course, my goal, of course, just like Mike was saying, is just to have fun, right? We just want to have some fun and just get to know SolidWorks a little bit better together.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I was talking earlier. I've got my snacks for the show, right? I've got my notebook ready to go. I'm sure I'm going to take lots of notes here. Plenty of coffee and some water to go. So I I can't wait to see it. I'm sure I'm going to learn a ton of stuff here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna get right into. Let me share my SolidWorks.
So I point out Eric noticed the stove in the background. He said the love of camping, cooking,
Yes.
and hiking, and
Yeah,
I see it there.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you're gonna see this little camping stove in a future example. Yeah, we're gonna use that example to help us with some of our SolidWorks tips and tricks. So, all right, so I'll just jump in. I'll just jump in right here. I'm not going to go into really too much PowerPoint. I'm just going to stick right pretty much with SolidWorks here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to open an inch template, a part inch template here, and we're going to let that open up for a second. And once this opens, just want to talk a little bit about the user interface because that's sort of the first thing that I know that I see when um, in class. A lot of times, especially in person, I teach a lot online, but especially in person, I see one of the first things that folks like to do is just go through and change their interface a little bit. So
Mhm.
once SolidWorks loads up here, we're going to go ahead and get into our user interface.
Yeah, how about the audience? Any custom UI that you is a must do? First thing you do when you open up a new install of SolidWorks. For me, I get into my S key and I overhaul that.
Yeah,
Actually, just
yeah,
loads a reg key, right? But
sure.
S key for me is where I always make probably the most customizations, and then my right mouse gestures too. I use those very heavily, so I make sure those are parked exactly how I like them.
Right, right. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just close SOLIDWORKS out and just do
Yeah,
this
no
again
problem.
here.
I see Eric's in the audience. Hey, Eric, good to see you as always. I think you still have almost the perfect attendance streak on our live design, so I always appreciate it. Anyone else? If you guys have any awesome S keys and gestures, Todd, totally agree with you. Anyone use the large icon format? And I always see that and throws me off because I'm usually the standard icons, but every now and then you see the large large icons of the command manager,
Yeah,
which is
and that
great for 4K.
actually that was actually one of the things that I was gonna say here because when I'm training, right, I usually try and keep my interface pretty much exactly the same as what out of the box SolidWorks is. I really don't customize my interface too much just because I don't want to confuse anyone who is new. So I
Mhm.
really don't do too much on the customizations, but S key, mouse gestures, all that fun stuff, definitely. But one thing, Mike, one thing that I do change from the out of the box SolidWorks definitely has to be the icons. I like those classic colors. That's
Oh,
the yellow and the green.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely more my style. And I know default SolidWorks comes in as blue and gray, and that's great if it all comes down to personal preference. And so what I wanted to just show is how do I change my icons? How do you change the size of your icons? Things like that. So what I'm going to do to change the color of the icons is go up to my options and then I'll go over to the colors and you can
Amanda, let's
see,
go ahead and share your screen one more time here.
oh
Should be
gosh,
able to come in.
I thought
Oh
that
yeah,
I
no
was
problem.
sharing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and get that shared up. Maybe when the, let's see here. There we go.
There we go. Got you up.
Sure, the audience was maybe a little confused. Wait a second. Okay. All right. So, how do I get my icons to be a different color? And that's one of the first things that I notice that folks like to change, and also the background colors as well for their command manager and for their feature tree. So let's just check out how we can do that. So I'm going to go up to my options here, and then from my options, I'll go down to my colors.
Mm.
And then for your icon color, you've got the classic colors, which again is that yellow and green. You've got those default colors, which again is the blue and the blue and the gray. So again, I like the classic colors. I know one of the first things that folks do when they come in to change this is they change the background to dark.
Mm.
And so if I do that, I'll click OK here. So that changes our feature tree and that changes our command manager. But Mike, as you saw here, this doesn't change the graphics area, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we can change that graphics area. And one of the ways that we can change that graphics area is by going to the little beach ball on the dance floor up here and hitting that drop down. And you could choose plain white. You could choose 3-point faded. I mean, there's a lot of different ones in here. Now, Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot here because this one always cracks me up. This courtyard background here. I always thought it was the Vatican, but I was mistaken for sure. So I went through. I actually looked up where this is. Do you know where this is, Mike?
Um, is that in Switzerland? I'm just guessing because I
Oh, that's a
saw
good guess.
a
Yeah.
red flag up there.
It so it's actually, you ready? So it's actually Berlin, Germany. I actually looked it
Oh,
up.
interesting.
I was very curious. Yeah, I'm going to do my best German here, but it's called Babelplatz. And so this is the Babelplatz courtyard. Yeah, so this always cracks me up. But again, it's just another way that you can change your background.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, if I go back into my options here, another way that you can change the background is to go to colors. Okay, so options, you're in system options, colors. When I come down here, we can see this option, use document scene background, right? And that's what's telling it to use this scene right here, right? And if you wanted to change that to maybe a different color, you could change it here by selecting plain or viewport background color above. Now, what that's directing us to is this background right up here. So what I find this really helpful for, Mike, is if I'm trying to make a presentation, right? So I'll click on this, I'll
Mm.
click on viewport background. If I'm trying to make a presentation and I want to remove the background, right? So I take a screenshot of my part and I want to remove the background. I like to come in here and change the viewport background so it's a highly contrasting color. So if my part is very light colored, then I might go for a dark colored background, and that would make it easier to remove, when you go to PowerPoint and you remove
Oh,
the
sure. Kind
background.
of like the weatherman, right? A green screen.
Yeah, kind of like a green
Oh,
screen. Yeah,
cool.
and you can do that too. You have a little green over here, or of course, if your part is really dark, then you might want to make it a white background, right? Just make it a lot easier. Make a heavy contrast to make it a lot easier to change your to
Yeah, that's a
remove that
great
background.
tip. Presenting for design review, if you get a big customer coming in, you want to give them an update, getting some nice images maybe in a PowerPoint instead of just going right from CAD. That's a great tip.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if we were to go along with our darker theme here, what a lot of folks do is they'll change it to this gray, and that'll make that gray, that'll kind of go along with this darker background that they have here. Right.
I like that. Looks good. I think everything I have, my Windows, Themes, my Android, all of that is a dark dark gray look to
Everything's
it. But
it's a little easier on the eyes. Yeah, I
yes,
usually I usually
100%.
have mine back to like I said before, that usually go back to SolidWorks default, just so that it's the same as everyone else's when you're first starting out. But I definitely agree, this is a little easier on the eyes.
We got some good comments coming in on the audience here. Brian, great comment on turning the command manager off altogether. So once you learn the names of the commands, he says the S key plus hotkeys plus the mini toolbar, and you're much more faster, plus a lot more screen space. So yeah, that's been a theme with SolidWorks UI for several years now. Is just trying to reduce the amount of mouse you got to move around, and being able to just utilize and maximize that design space. And people are saying classic colors, right? That's that's an agreement. I think we can
Hmm.
all think back to the day that we made that. SolidWorks made that switch and obviously reverted back. So yeah, great tip.
Yeah, it gave us the option. Yeah, and we'll talk about the command manager in just a few minutes as well, for
Oh, great.
sure. So yeah, we'll definitely get right into that. And then just wanted to talk about this other way. You have gradient fill, right? So it could be darker on the top and then lighter on the bottom, right? You would go to the gradient fill here. And then the last one is this image fill, right? So you can fill it with whatever image that you like for your background. I'm going to go ahead and take us to the beach here, Mike, if that's okay. And there we go. So you can change your background to a picture as well if you would like. So really this is just all going into customizing SolidWorks to make yourself more comfortable. And when you're more comfortable, it should be a little bit faster for you in SolidWorks.
It's like vacation mode CAD design.
Yeah, vacation mode CAD design, exact. Just relax. It's all good. It's okay. So let me go ahead and change this back though. I'm just going to change this back. Whoops, hang on a second. Let me go back into my options here. And I'm going to change this back just to use my document scene background. Bye bye beach. Okay. And hello courtyard. Hello Babel pet. Babel Platz. Okay, let's go back into my 3-point faded mode. Now, the other thing is, like you had mentioned, icon colors, or sorry, icon size.
Mhm.
So I leave mine, I do change this. I change it so that way I have medium size icons because I'm usually training. Before I used to like having the small icons. And then when I changed to medium, I was like, nah, I don't know, but I have to do it for training. I want to make sure everyone can see. Now, if I go back to the small size icons, I'm like, wow, those are pretty small. But to change my icon size, I can right click on the command manager and I can go to customize, right? So this is different. This isn't in your options, right? Your colors are in your options. But icon size, you would right click on the command manager and go to customize. And you can see right here, you've got this icon size, and you can do the small, the medium, and the large icons, right? So even if maybe one day, Mike, you forget your glasses, right? And
Yeah.
now you want to go, maybe you usually have small icons, but today forgot my glasses. So I'm going to go and turn on the large icons, right? So you can do that right in here. Okay.
Amanda, to go back there really quick, because there's
Oh,
another
sure.
one that I personally didn't know about until this came out. So the tooltips right below there for more of the power users in the audience or new to CAD. So the default settings show tooltips with images. So if there's a new
Right.
command, that's just when you hover over, and then it'll pop
It's
up. I
going
don't,
up on my other
yeah,
screen. Let's
and
see.
that'll come up, and it gives you kind of an explanation of what's going on. If you don't need those, you can actually disable them. So that's actually right below where you're at, which is something that I do. I turn off the tooltips altogether because I don't need them. It just they flash up and create noise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we can turn those off. Definitely.
All right, continue on. Sorry, I wanted to
Okay.
share that one that was fairly new to me.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. So once we have all of our settings the way that we like them, it's a very good idea to save everything, right? When I was in tech support, I'm not in tech support anymore, but when I was in tech support, if you have a corrupt registry, right, we have to reset your registry, and that's going to reset all of your settings to default SolidWorks. Now, that may not be a big deal if you didn't make any changes, but if you made all those changes, you spent all that time, and now we're resetting, well, you cannot save your settings once you have that corruption in your registry, because otherwise you're going to save the corruption with the registry, right? So if you bring that saved settings back in after we fix it for you, you're bringing that corruption back in. So I highly recommend to everybody, as soon as you make all your changes, go ahead and save those settings. And how do we do that? You can go to the little drop down next to the options and just go to Save Restore Settings. And when we do this, our Save Restore Settings comes up. I'm just going to hit Save here, and I'll hit Next. And here's where we can go and put in, wherever we want to put this. Maybe I'll just put it on the desktop so it's easy for me. So you can save your settings. Mine just says Amanda Settings. We'll save this. And you can save your system options, your toolbar layouts, keyboard shortcuts, mouse gestures, menu customizations, saved views. You can save all of this stuff. And Mike, I know you probably are thinking the same thing, because it can be, if something happens to that registry, now you're thinking, okay, I did all these customizations. Okay, so you'd have to do them over again. But then you might think, well, wait a minute, what settings did I change? Right? You
Right.
may not
Yeah. That
remember
list
all
gets
those settings.
long and fast.
Mhm. Absolutely. So if you save this, it's just going to save a lot of time and a lot of headache. So you can save this, right, Mike? We don't want to go from version to version, right? We wouldn't want to take our settings from 2022 into 2023, right? But we can save this and we can use these settings across different service packs. You can even use this registry setting if maybe your coworker comes over and says, wow, your customizations are amazing. Can you send those out to me? And you can do that. You can send them this registry file, and they can use your settings as well. So we'll just finish this off, and just to be able to bring them back, you just go to that same process. You just hit that down arrow there, save restore settings. you'll choose restore settings, and then you'll go and you'll find whatever wherever your file was, right? And then that will restore the settings. And that's what your coworkers can do too if they've asked you for your settings.
That's a great tip. I used to use 2 reg settings, because I did a lot of simulation back in my VAR days, and so I had one reg setting that was really for just my when I was gonna be diving into some simulation, so changing S key, changing my mouse gestures, and then I had one for design, and I was depending on what I was doing for the day, I was loading those new reg keys, the new settings. So yeah, it's a really handy tool, great way to share, like you're mentioning. I love being able to share those over to a colleague or coworker, especially if you're someone new you're picking up. And there's a lot that it saves in there too, right? You get not only like customization, but there's file path location stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah, all your system options. Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
So I'm
great tip.
just gonna just cancel this out here because I don't really need that for now. Okay. So the next tip has to do with the command manager because I can't tell you how many times we would have someone using the command manager, and then, oh, by the way, can you remind me to bring my colors back because I see my colors are still that dark color there. But we'll go through this tip here with the command manager. So with the command manager, sometimes you can accidentally pull the command manager off. Now, you can see, I'll show you this in a second here, but you can see mine won't do that. Mine, I can click and drag on these tabs as much as I want to, and I can't actually pull the command manager down. What that option is if I go to right click on the command manager, I can go to customize. And down here, you've got this lock command manager and toolbars. So I see this all the time. If this is off, you can click and drag this and it will come
Yeah, I
out.
have seen that. That's happened to me in the past.
Yep, it's happened. Yeah, I think it's happened to all of us in the past. And so, what you can do here, first of all, don't panic. It's okay. All you have to do is hover your mouse over the top of the command manager, hold your left mouse button down on that, and then start dragging your mouse around. Now, when you drag your mouse around, you will see there are 3 arrows, one on the left, one at the top, and one on the right. And these arrows represent the different places that you can dock your command manager. Of course, the most common place, Mike, right, is up at the top here. So
Hmm.
if I just hover my mouse over this and I drop the command manager up top here, we can see that now I have that command manager right back in place. And if I don't want it to be able to move, I can again right click on my command manager, go to customize, and then
Yeah,
turn
lock
off
it.
or yeah, turn on that lock command manager and
All right, I'm
toolbars.
curious in the audience. So one, I guess they ran a poll here on blue yellow versus blue gray versus the green yellow, and looks like Sean was saying the blue gray is dunking on green yellow. But I want to hear: does anyone use a left or right sided justified command manager
Oh
in the
yeah,
chat?
yeah.
If you do, if you got a good argument for that, I'd love to hear it. I'm on top. Mine's always on top.
Mine too. Yep, absolutely. And so going along with that, while we're waiting for that poll to come in or some comments to come in there, we had before was it Brian who had said to remove the command manager and use the S key?
Yes, yeah, that was his pro tip.
Yeah, so some people purposely get rid of remove the command manager, and some folks accidentally do it, right? And I see that sometimes in class as well, especially when there's a keyboard shortcut to something, things accidentally happen, right? Because you accidentally hit the keyboard shortcut for it. So the keyboard shortcut for removing the command manager would be Function 10 on your keyboard.
Hmm.
And when you hit Function 10 on your keyboard, that removes the command manager. And I believe it or not, Function 10, I know it seems like an obscure button to hit, but believe it or not, I've seen this more than you would think, where folks accidentally hit Function 10, and oh no, where did my command manager go? And so Function 10 can actually bring that back too, right, Mike? So Function 10 that'll bring that right back as well. And you can also right click on the command manager and choose enable command manager. You can toggle it on and off through that button there, or right click on the top bar here and choose enable command manager, right? So you can turn that on
Uh,
and off if you want more real estate. Now, Mike, speaking of real estate here, what about if we just want to minimize the command manager, right? F10, function 10 gets rid of the command manager altogether.
sure.
What if I just want to minimize it? So that's where this little button up here comes. Now this was pretty new, and I meant to look up how news was. Maybe Sean or Mike or Andrew can let me know what version this was in where they put this. They put this little carrot up here, so I can click on that carrot in the top right hand corner, and now the command manager minimizes. Well, what's the difference? Well, it's not completely gone. You can see I still have the tabs up in the top left-hand corner over here, and I can click on them, and then I can do whatever it is that I need to do. And then when I'm done, I click out in the graphics area, and now that command manager minimizes again. So there's a difference there. We can get rid of the command manager, or we could just minimize it and get it out of our way.
That's
If we
kind of a
want to
nice in between of what Brian was saying. If you want to transition to no command manager, minimize, you still can access it, but have that real estate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that real estate, yeah, that's a big thing, and I definitely agree with that. And if you wanted to tack it back open, Mike, right, just like anything, we have that little thumbtack. There's our little friend, the thumbtack over here, and we can just click on that thumbtack, and we can keep that command manager open
Oh,
again.
cool. Hey, Jesse's got a good tip in the chat here. He says, I put that on my mouse gestures so I can flip the command manager on and off. And I
Oh,
do the same with the feature manager tree. So again, more customization. I think we all like to customize our own way. That's an awesome tip. So thanks, Jesse.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jesse. And okay, so uh, what I wanted to talk a little bit here about next, again, just kind of trying to focus on things that I see in class here. Oh, let me change my colors back if that's okay. I'm going to just change them back to the light colors. Okay, there we go. Okay, so again, this idea of what do I see in training classes? Well, one of the things that I see in training classes when we go and start a sketch, a lot of times folks try and click on the words of the plane rather than clicking on the icon. And who would know unless someone says something, right? So the way we start a sketch, right? We pick a plane, we choose the sketch button from the in context menu, and then SolidWorks, if it's the first sketch, it'll orient us normal to that sketch, or right, we can orient ourselves normal to in other ways. But if you accidentally slowly double click on the name of either a plane or even a feature mic or a sketch, it'll go into rename mode. And so if you want to avoid that, right, because it's just an extra step, right? Now you're in rename
Mm-hmm.
mode, you got to click off, you got to click back onto it. So instead of doing that, just click on the icon next to the sketch, right? I can sit here and I can click all day. I don't know if you can hear my mouse going, but I can click all day on this and I won't get into rename mode.
That's a great tip.
And yeah, and so the other thing that I see folks do here is, this in context menu. I encourage everyone to, make it work for you, right? You click on this, you click on the icon next to the plane. You don't move your cursor until you see the in context menu, and then you can move your mouse toward the in context menu and click the sketch button when you're ready for it. For some folks, I've found that they just don't like that way. And so if you don't like that way, just right click. Right? If you right click on this, you could move your mouse anywhere you want all day, and this in context menu is not going to go anywhere. You have your right click options, but it's not like the in context menu is going to go away if you move your cursor away. So that's something that I think a lot of folks in the beginning, especially when they're having trouble with that, I just say, hey, maybe just try right clicking on that, and that'll get you the sketch button, and you can go ahead and hit the sketch button there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the sketch button, and because it's the very first sketch, I'm going to go into a normal 2, right? I'm going to go square to this plane automatically because SolidWorks is doing that for me. So one thing, Mike, especially in the beginning, I don't know, did this happen to you as well? It definitely happened to me when I was first starting learning SolidWorks. I could never remember if I was in a sketch or not. Right? Has that happened to you before when you
Oh yeah,
when you
still
first
does.
starting out? Yep.
Still does.
Yep, it's sometimes it's just, am I in a sketch? So, 3 ways that I can tell that I'm in a sketch are I can tell that I'm in a sketch because I have the red origin in the middle, right? Your origin, if you're not in a sketch, would either not be there at all, depending on your hide show settings, or it would be blue if you're not in a sketch. So it's red when you're in a sketch. The origin's red when you're in a sketch. You'll be able to see the blue arrow in the confirmation corner. That's the exit sketch and keep changes. That's that button there. And then you'll also see editing sketch 1 in the status bar. Now, you don't necessarily have to look for all three ways every single time you go into a sketch, but if you're just starting out and you're really not sure, I'd encourage you to look for these three signs and make sure that you're in a sketch. Now, when we get out of the sketch, you'll see that down in the status bar, it'll just say editing part instead of editing sketch.
Okay. Yeah, those are good tips. The origin, I think, is probably one of the newer ones for me, and it's blatantly obvious. It's right in front of you, but yeah, that's a very easy signal to know.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're just starting out and you're thinking, am I in a sketch? Am I not in a sketch? This is a big one. This is a very, very big one for folks because, as you know, Mike, when we're making our features, we got to make our sketches first, right? So this is a big one. Now, wanted to change gears a little bit here and talk about dimensioning to invisible vertical.
Okay.
Now, this first one, it's going to be like, okay, Amanda, well, it's not anything really new, but then that's going to segue into something a little bit more complex, maybe a little bit more obscure that folks don't really know about. So I'm going to go to the Sketch tab and just choose the line command, and I'll just go ahead and I'm just going to make a triangle here. And when I make this triangle, let's just say that I want to dimension this angle right from here, my little arrows here, from here to here, right? I want to put in whatever dimension in there. Well, some folks may want to put a center line or a construction line up here, and that's a perfectly valid way of doing things. But there is an easier and a faster way. And I could just go right to the smart dimension and I can click on this line here, this angled line, and I can click on the vertical line. And the reason I can get away with this is because of this vertical line being here in the first place, because now I can just move my cursor around and now I can orient my angles in a different way, right? So I can come around and this right here, let me move this over. This right here, this is our invisible vertical, right? We're dimensioning to invisible vertical. And so I'm going to go ahead and make this 130 or whatever dimension we need. And again, so we might say, okay, well, yeah, that's, that's something that's pretty common knowledge. But what happens if we don't have this vertical that we can go off of, Mike, right? Sometimes we don't have that vertical that we
Right.
can start out with. So I'm going to come over here to the side. I'm just going to make another line. And this time I'm going to make it at an angle. And this time we don't have any vertical lines that we can go off of. So what we can do is use this little trick here where we go to the smart dimension and I'm going to click on the line that I want to make the dimension for, and then I'll click on the point closest to where I want that invisible vertical to be. So I'm going to click on this line here and then click directly on the point. So I'm clicking on the line and directly on the point. And when I do that, we
Ah,
get that crosshairs. Yeah. So this crosshairs now we have this the ability to either dimension to our invisible vertical, or you could also dimension to your invisible horizontal, depending on what you're trying to do.
now does that
So
work
in
in
this
drawings
case,
as well as we're going through in detailing?
actually, I don't know.
Yeah,
We could definitely give it a try. Anybody know? Anybody in the comments know?
yeah, that's a great tip. Like
Well,
the OG way, right, is just creating that construction line and going from
absolutely,
there.
yeah.
But that's a way faster way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And kind of it looks cool too. If someone's looking over your shoulder, oh, I didn't know that.
The job security right there.
Yeah, just that one tip right there. Boom. All right. So how about this one, Mike? How about this one? I'm going to hit escape here to get out of my smart dimension, and I'm going to try and put a relation between these two lines. So I'm going to click on the one line, hold my control key, and click on the other line. And when I let go of my control key, what happens? My in context menu appears, right? But what happens when I move my cursor away, right? That in context menu disappears. And we know that, right? That's what happens. And we know that we could go over to the property manager and we can use the relations in the property manager. What if you want to get the in context menu back? Well, if you want to get the in context menu back, just hover your mouse over where it used to be and tap the control key.
Ah, hey Amanda, this is a really awesome tip. I think a lot of users don't know where there's a few of the dialogues that aren't popping up on your share. So we're gonna have you just unshare your screen quick and then reshare not the program but the actual monitor,
Ah,
and have you
okay.
review that. Yeah, just there's some weird graphic stuff. I think it's a security thing, so you're not showing some menus. So we'll
Ooh,
try that. Yeah. So what
okay.
Amanda's showing is those in context pop ups where you can define your relations. If you move away from them, they disappear. And you're like, I got to go way over to the left hand side, find it there. Leaving it up and hitting control will make those reappear, and hopefully she can show it here. Great tip. So let's take a look, see if this will work.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so I just click on this line here. I hold my control key and click on
There
this
we
other
go.
line here as if I'm trying to make a relation. And when I let go of my control key, like we were saying, Mike, if I move my mouse away, we can see the in context menu disappears. But if I hover my mouse over where it used to be and I just tap the control key, that in context menu will reappear again. Right? So
Yeah, control key for the win on that one. I love that tip.
yeah, it's definitely I definitely use this a lot, and I actually try to explain this in pretty much every one of my classes to make sure that everyone knows about it. All right. Did we get the results of that poll in?
Yeah. Oh, the poll. Yeah. What was the winner on the green yellow versus blue gray? I really have come to love the blue gray, so my vote
Okay.
is there. I'm not an icon user, but hey, teach their own, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all about just customizing this to make it as the best experience possible for you.
87% blue gray. Okay.
Nice. All right. Well, how about Mike? How about so in some of my classes, I definitely see folks coming over from other softwares, and the Zoom is backward for them. I know some folks like Mastercam or Autodesk coming from those softwares. The Zoom is backward, right? Or for them, the Zoom is backward. For us,
Their zoom
the
is
Zoom is
backwards. Yeah,
yeah,
their
their Zoom
their zoom is backwards, to be
yes,
clear.
their Zoom is backward. Yeah. And so if you want to change your Zoom, this is another big one that I usually get when as soon as I say this in class, I have at least 3 or 4 people like, thank you. If you go to your options, you can go to your system options view and you can choose reverse mouse wheel zoom
Mm,
direction. Yeah, I'm not going to do that because it's going to mess me up, but that's how you would be able to reverse the mouse wheel zoom, right? So that's a big one. Mike, another one that I get a lot is what if I want to be able to put in my dimensions as I'm sketching? That's another big one.
yes.
So to do that, and just to be clear here for everyone, as I'm sketching here with a line, I don't put in any kind of dimensions as I'm going through, right? I come back and I do my smart dimension after. But if you want to be able to put in dimensions as you're sketching, you can go to your options and go to sketch, and then you can choose enable on-screen numeric input on entity creation. So if I click on this and then I click OK here, I can now go through, I'll make a line, and as soon as I start making a line, now I'm using the click method on this one to get multiple line segments. And I'll put in 8 here, 8 inches here. And maybe I'll come up and maybe I'll do 9 inches here. Right. So you can do that. You can transition from the line into an arc by bringing your cursor back to the point that you just
Mm,
made and then transition into an arc, and look at that. You can make the radius there. So there we go. So it works on the radius as well. So that's your input. You can put your numeric input on entity creation. That's another big question that I get from folks who are especially coming over from another software. They want to know how they can just input their dimensions right away, right as they're making their sketches.
That's a great and you mentioned the click click for the users that don't know. Do you wanna elaborate a little
Yeah,
bit on that?
sure, sure. So for the line command, believe it or not, it sounds kind of crazy, but there are a couple different ways to create a line. And so if you want to use the click click method, the click click method will create multiple connected line segments or multiple continuous line segments. And it'll end whenever you come back to your original point. Whereas the click drag method, when you hold your left mouse button down, you can drag this across. And when you're holding your left mouse button down and moving your mouse, and then you let go of your left mouse button, that will create one line segment, right? So this is another really good point, Mike, because a lot of times when folks are starting out, for some folks, um, making sure that we know the difference between click and drag, right? When we're clicking, we're saying that we're uh, clicking our mouse button and letting go, right? So it's just a click and then we let go, and then we click and then we let go, right? We click, we let go. Whereas with the click drag method, that would be, let me get my line again. The click drag method would be I'm holding my left mouse button down, I'm moving my mouse, and then I'm letting go of my left mouse button. So that's another big thing for folks who are just starting out, making sure we know, are we clicking or are we dragging? Because that can be it can be a little bit frustrating for folks who are just starting out. Just making sure we know we're clicking or are we dragging.
Yeah, that's a great tip too. I think, a lot of power users in this audience, but as we're training and you are a trainer, so these are good tips to think of bringing on someone new onboarding, maybe someone fresh out of school that has a little background in SolidWorks. Those just that language alone is important to keep in mind. Click, 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 and drag. Make sure that they're aware of what you mean. And Amanda, this is an awesome tip. I got to go back. SolidWorks Zoom is like fishing. Wheel toward you to bring the part toward away from you. Wing toward you to bring the part, and wheel away to bring the away from you, just like you would catch a fish. Which I've never heard. And Todd responded, I used to explain it the same way. So that's a super awesome little way to remember that.
It is, especially because I love being outdoors and I do go fishing. So yeah, that's a great one. Thanks for bringing that up. Uh, okay, so let's go ahead. We'll change gears a little bit here because I know I have that camping stove in the background there. So why do I have that all set up? I'm not cooking back here. I'm not going to be cooking any meals or anything. But what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and exit this sketch here. And before I exit the sketch, I'm going to use the blue arrow to exit the sketch. But I want to show a tip where we can actually bring the confirmation corner to our cursor. So if let's say my cursor is over here and I'm just going to save a little bit of time from moving my cursor over to that confirmation corner. All I have to do is hit D on my keyboard. That's D as in Delta. So D on my keyboard, and that brings the confirmation corner to my cursor. And I can now hit the blue arrow to exit the sketch and keep the changes.
Cool. So D
Yeah,
as in Delta. That's the gonna bring that out there. I have one I would like to share that I
sure.
learned from the great Mark Schneider. Is you can exit a sketch just by double clicking in space.
Aha. Okay. Well, let's go in here, Mike. That's awesome.
So edit your sketch, and if you just double
Okay.
click,
Uh-oh.
is it not working?
I'm double clicking.
Oh, we'll have to double check. I'm almost positive that another way to
Oh,
exit out.
is that when you have instant 3D
Instant
on?
3D on. Yes, there we go.
Yeah,
So instant
okay.
3D on.
Yep. Yep, yep. Okay,
Yeah.
I
So if you
usually have my instant 3D off. But
gotcha.
yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Mike. Yeah, if you have
Oh
instant
no, no.
3D
I
on.
that's yeah. I usually work with instant 3D, and I, yeah. Mark Schneider taught me that one. I said, wow, that's amazing. I never knew.
It makes it nice and fast. Yeah. So if you have instant 3D on and you're in a sketch, you can double click and that'll exit the sketch out for you. All right, cool. Let's do another keyboard shortcut here, Mike. How about R? How about R on our keyboard? So
Hmm.
R will bring up those recent documents. I think it's like the top 25, right, Mike?
It's growing. I know that.
It's good.
I think it
it
used to be less, and now it's more.
it certainly makes it helpful. All right, so I'm gonna open up our camping stove, and yes, this really is my camping stove. You can see it right behind me here. I was gonna hold it up to the camera, but it's kind of heavy and awkward, so didn't want to drop it on my toe or anything. Be on the YouTube fails. Girl tries to make SolidWorks presentation but drops camping stove on toe. So, well, let's avoid that. But that camping stove is right there. This is my camping stove that I have over here. And so I wanted to talk just to sort of wrap up here a little bit, Mike. I wanted to talk about hide show and something that I actually learned from a user group meeting that I recently went to, and I had no idea that this was a thing. And then I want to talk just a little bit about filters, and that'll just wrap up our time here. But so in our propane stove, right? We may or may not know. Some folks may or may not know that if you wanted to hide a component, you can hover your mouse over that component that you want to hide, and you can hit the tab key to hide that component. And if you want to show the component, you can hit Shift Tab if you're hovering your mouse over where that component used to be, right? So hit Tab to hide, and then hit Shift Tab to show. Now, that was one thing that I did know, right? I did know that, Mike, but when I went to this user group meeting, this is why I encourage folks to go to their user group meetings, even if you're like, nah, I'm a power user. I don't, I've been teaching SolidWorks for 6 years now, but using SolidWorks since like 2011. And I didn't know this. So granted, it might not have been a feature in 2011, but if you were to hide some components, if you hit Control Shift Tab, that will bring up a silhouette or a transparent view of everything that you've just hidden. So this way, maybe you don't remember, right? Some folks don't remember. I've done that too, where I hide something. Mike, I'm sure you've done that too, where you hide something and you're like, where did that pesky part go? Well, if you hit Control Shift Tab, you can see what you've just hidden, and you can click on it and bring it back. And I didn't know that. I learned that in a user group meeting like 2 weeks ago. I thought, man, I gotta bring this. I gotta shout this out to the world because I thought this was really helpful
Yeah,
when
that's
you're
a great
hunting
tip.
around. Yep. And so that's really wanted to show that with hide show. And the other really cool thing, Mike, I really like this as well. If you're trying to select everything except for one part or everything except for a couple parts, you can do the inverted selection. I love using this one. So let's say I wanted to select everything except for the main body of the camp stove. I can click on the main body of the camp stove, I can select it, right click on it, and in my right click menu is this invert selection. And so if I choose invert selection, now everything except for the main body of the camp stove is selected. I love this one. I use this one all the time. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, that's
And
really handy.
and Mike, just like we were saying before, it kind of makes you look cool. It kind of makes me feel cool. Like if someone's looking over my shoulder, like, wow, she knows what she's doing. So that inverted selection, it's so helpful. If you want to select a few things, but you want to have, maybe you don't want to select the one thing. So you select that thing you don't want to select, you right click on it, you invert the selection. So that's another one that I just wanted to bring to everybody. I think it's a really helpful tip to have. Okay, and then Mike, this is a big one. I wanted to talk about selection filters just to kind
Okay.
of wrap up. So selection filters, again, in training, I see this a lot. And so I wanted to bring this to everyone so you know how to, I don't want to say fix it, but you know what's happening so you can get out of it. So we can use selection filters. And in order to get to the selection filters, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. I usually use the function 5 key. So if you use function 5, you'll see this filter toolbar comes up. Now, I know, Mike, we can also go up to the command manager, right click on the command manager, go to our toolbars, and we can turn on the selection filter toolbar right here if you don't like the function 5 way of doing things. And so that brings up this filter here. Now, I just want to focus on these first 3 because I'm sure, Mike, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. But when I'm training a class, a lot of times folks will ask me, what's with this little filter icon that I have on my mouse? Or why can't I select edges or why can't I select these vertices? It's because you're in a filter. Now, the thing about filters is, I'm going to hover my mouse over this first one, vertices, edges, filters. What did we notice about this here, Mike? What do you notice about that little keyboard shortcut that's sitting right there? Right? Oh,
We've got, I mean, the shortcut itself, EX, those.
yeah, yep, the V, the E, the
Yeah, yeah,
X.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy to accidentally hit those on the keyboard.
Yes.
And and the thing is, you don't even have to be in your filters in order to accidentally do this. If I hit X on my keyboard, X is for faces,
Hmm.
and now all of a sudden I'm in a filter. I'm not even in the selection filters menu, but now all of a sudden I have a filter. I'm filtering for faces. Now all of a sudden I can't choose my edges or I can't choose my vertices. Right? So super easy to get yourself into a filter, not so easy to get yourself out because you'll notice if you hit the escape key, you can hit
No, yeah,
escape as
nothing
much as you
happens.
want. Yep, nothing happens, right? So,
And I think everyone in here reverts directly to the escape key as fast as you can when you want to
oh,
back out, right?
absolutely. Me too. Me too. Absolutely. So I think it's just so important that we know how do we get out of this, right? So if you happen to know which button that you hit, you can hit that button again. In my case, I hit X for filtering faces, and
Oh,
and that will take me right back
this
out of
this is
it.
a toggle on off type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Mike, what if you don't know which button you hit, right? So if you don't know which button you hit, if you're not sure, you can always bring up that menu. Now let me go back into a filter. I'll just hit X again. You can always bring up that menu again. You can right click on the command manager and go to toolbars and you can turn on your selection filters. And then you'll see here that the one that's toggled on is filter for faces, and I can turn that off. And now I'm good to go. Right. So if you don't know which filter you're on, just recognize all you have to do is recognize that if you have this little filter symbol here, just go right into the filters. Again, you can hit function 5 as well to get into the filters, and you can turn that off.
Now, Amanda, I noticed when you launched SolidWorks that your filter selections were up. Is that something that you generally just leave on?
No, actually, that was because I was practicing
Oh,
before
got it.
before the webinar. Yeah, yep, that was my practicing. Yep, sorry about that. Uh, but yeah, so that I really just wanted to bring that. I hope that everyone can find something useful out of this, even if it's just one golden nugget of information that you can glean from this. You know, it's just from my 6 years of training and seeing what people do and how people use the software and how our users interact with the user interface. Just want to try and bring some of these things to you so that way you know what's happening when you get yourself into one of these situations.
Hey, Amanda, Platform Jones just appeared in the chat. Very big celebrity here in the SolidWorks channel. And he
Excellent.
mentioned F6 clears all the selection filters, which is another really good tip. So thanks for
Oh,
sharing that as
fantastic.
well.
Yeah,
Good to see you,
F6.
Platform.
There it is. I just did it too. Thank you. F6. I think I knew that one and forgot about it.
Yeah, that's what happens. And I think, you
Yeah.
bring up a great point about user groups. And even if you're a power user, and you go to those user groups working with other power users or new to it, is there's so many nice little enhancements and tips and tricks that you forget about it because we all get in our ways, right? We all get used to doing things. You might learn something, but you forget it, right? So hearing those again, reminders are great ways to reinvigorate some tips into your workflows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Amanda, this was super awesome. You covered a lot of great tips here. Any questions in the audience, please feel free to tune in now. But man, I learned a bunch here. The F5 selection filters, that happens too often for me where I hit, X or F or whatever it might be. And so just bringing that back up, clearing those out. And I honestly did not know the F6 key. So thanks, Mark, as well for bringing that in. The
Yeah.
Control Shift tab, I think I did see that at some point and I forget about it. I usually go into the isolate and do it that way, right? And it's
Oh,
or
yep.
select hidden. You can do it. And that's such a
Yeah.
fast,
Show hidden
direct yeah,
components.
show hidden
Yeah.
components.
All
So
that
that
fun
was
stuff.
that was so great. And I think just overall on just reminding us the customization side of things. So the UI is there, and I'm going to go start using the collapsed command manager. So
Oh
that
yeah.
was 2021, I think, was the consensus on that release.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, 2021 is when that came out. So if you're on SolidWorks 2021 or newer, you can actually collapse your command manager and then toggle it back open as you need it. But as Brian was mentioning, getting away from the command manager altogether is a nice tip too. So thank you so much for your knowledge. Thank you for your contribution to the SolidWorks community with training and teaching and sharing your passion. I know we much appreciate it here.
Oh,
So yeah, any questions
absolutely.
come in, please feel free to have so. And if you ever have any questions for Amanda, she's at Go Engineer. She's a trainer there. You can always reach out, say hi, add her on LinkedIn and so on. I also want to give a shout out to, we've got a big episode coming up July 27th, the challenging the manufacturing status quo. So it's one of our biggest manufacturing episodes. We're going to dive deep into the industry and learn a ton about exciting things both on and off the shop floor. So this is going to be relevant for all of us, right? If you're a CAD designer, you still need to know about manufacturability. It's still really important. So they're going to be featuring some of our influencers. A lot of you probably know Jeremy Fielding, super awesome, amazing guy. Ton of knowledge there. Mavens of Manufacturing to Megan Zemba is going to be there as well, and SolidWorks champion Eric Timmons and more. So again, that's July 27th at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you guys haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, please do. It lets us know that you want to see more, and we'll continue to bring episodes like this and amazing people like Amanda to try to just spread knowledge and spread excitement about CAD. So with that, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you guys joining in. Tell your colleagues about our channel as well. Like and subscribe, like I mentioned, and we will see you next round. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for having me.